Hello, okay, here is my review for The Nun, directed by a Corin Hardy. He's only directed one other movie, and that was called The Hallow. I've never seen it. So we've got The Nun, and it is a spin-off from the Conjuring movies, The Conjuring 2 to be exact. They also did the same with the Annabelle doll. I haven't actually seen the Annabelle movies. And if you've seen my previous reviews for The Conjuring and Conjuring 2, you would know that I actually quite liked those movies. I enjoyed them. They were quite good. Especially if you compare them to the shit horror that we usually have. Those movies were actually quite good horror movies. Not perfect, but they were good. I enjoyed them. I will leave a link for my reviews for those. So we've got The Nun. So the plot follows a Father Burke and Sister Irene. It's based in 1952, and they are sent to an abbey in Romania by the Vatican to sort of investigate some mysterious going-ons. I'm not going to give away too much about what happens in the plot, but something happens at the beginning involving nuns at the abbey, and so then Father Burke and Sister Irene are sent to basically find out what's happened and if the ground is still holy and not cursed and all of that. There isn't really much of a plot, but first of all, I'm going to mention positives, because there were positives in this film. There were aspects of this movie that I liked. So the two big positives for me, the two highlights for me, was the score. The music in this movie, I loved it. The music is composed by Abel Kozanowski. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. And the score that he created for this movie, the music that he composed, I loved it. It was like what you'd come to expect, really, with these movies, especially with The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2. I loved the soundtrack in those movies. It reminded me of The Exorcist. It was very sort of, you got a lot of choir, and it sounds very dark and gothic, and I just like it. And again, the same for this particular movie. The music really helped try and add some horror and tension to certain moments within the film. It really tried to heighten that horror element during certain moments, and I really dug it. I loved the music so much in this film that I will probably seek it out on CD. I will probably buy it, because I just thought it really sort of helped the film when it came to the horror, and it did. It when you listen to the horror during certain moments, it really sort of, it was very eerie. I liked it. And then so that leads me into the atmosphere. I mean, they really did do a good job, or there was a good attempt at trying to create an eerie atmosphere. There were moments in this movie purely down because of the lighting. I did like the lighting in certain scenes, and because of the music as well. You know, it all helped sort of in moments create a very eerie and uneasy atmosphere, and I liked that. It was a good. I wouldn't say it was consistent throughout the movie, but there were definitely moments in this film where they nailed the atmosphere, and it did. It felt a little bit eerie. Like, there is this one moment in the film, don't worry, there's no spoilers, but there's a moment in a corridor. If you've seen the film, you may know what moment I'm referring to, and it's involving Sister Irene. And it's in a long corridor, and you've got these crosses hanging off the ceiling, and the door opens, and she sees something. And just the way that entire scene just plays out, that entire moment in this corridor, everything sort of slows down. The music kicks in. It sends chills up your spine, and I loved it. That was a really cool, neat moment in this horror movie. But unfortunately, it was just, there weren't enough of those moments. And so even though you could see that, you know, there was a good, you know, there's a decent attempt at creating an eerie atmosphere, for me, there wasn't just quite enough of it, and enough of those really sort of creepy, cool moments. And the performances in the movie were actually okay. The standout for me was a Taissa Farmiga. She plays Sister Irene. I thought she was really good. She was really good in this film, actually. For me, performance-wise, she was probably the best. It felt real. It felt like she was really trying. She sort of conveyed this a certain amount of innocence. She conveyed this innocence about her character, which the character needed to have, really. And she was just really good at portraying this particular character, and it to a point where I kind of cared for the character. And I really liked I think this is how you say his name or pronounce his name, but Demián Bichir, I think that's how you say his name, who plays Father Burke. I thought he was quite good as well. But this is where I go into the negatives now, because as good as the performances were, the script in this movie was terrible. Probably it's one of the biggest negatives for me in this film was the script. My God, did I cringe at moments. It was just, it was shocking. It was just a really bad script, and so you had these really good performances. You had these people who could tell really cared, and they wanted to sort of really give it all, but when they just didn't have that support when it came to the dialogue, the script, and it was just. So we got a Jonas Bloquet. His character is just someone who delivers supplies to this abbey where the nuns are, and he joins Father Burke and Sister Irene in this investigation, you could say. But I just found his character very, very annoying. His name is Maurice, but they nickname him Frenchie because he's a French Canadian. It really made me cringe because and then at some points during the film, Father Burke and Sister Irene actually call him Frenchie, and it made me cringe. It was so his character I found was really annoying. I actually found Jonas Bloquet's character unnecessary. We didn't really need him in the film. Yeah, okay, during the first act maybe, but not throughout the rest of the movie. He just felt really pointless. But then overall, this entire movie felt very, very pointless. They had a creepy character from the second Conjuring movie, and they thought, you know what, I think this is gonna bring money in, and they made a movie around this particular character, the nun. And yeah, this movie's actually made quite a lot of money, which it's going to. But there's nothing really. There's no substance to this movie. There's no depth. There's no emotion, no real emotion. My overall feeling after this movie was, well, that was pointless. There was also some humour in this movie as well that for me didn't quite fit into the movie. You had certain moments where you had this humour, mostly with the character Frenchie. I may as well call him Frenchie now. It's Maurice, it is, but they call him Frenchie because he's a French Canadian. So yeah, but anyway, so the comedy was more when he was involved, when he was actually on the screen during scenes with Maurice. That's when you'd get the humour mostly, but it just didn't quite fit into the movie. Tonally, it was sort of like it just didn't fit the actual tone of the movie. So Demián Bichir, who portrays Father Burke, who plays the character Father Burke, like I said, his performance was okay. I liked it, and they do try to delve into this character's past, his history. There is a bit of a flashback, and which sort of goes into his past a little bit, and I can see what they're trying to do, which is sort of add a little bit of depth to this character and meaning and emotion. But they really failed on that level. They really failed to give this character any sort of depth or emotion or meaning or anything to really make you care for the character. I just didn't really care for the character at the end of the day, even though he gave a good performance, the actor. When it comes to the actual character, I was just like, whatever. So yeah, they do attempt to give this character some sort of depth, but they really just failed at it. They just failed to add any sort of weight to any of the characters, really. And the narrative didn't really quite flow as smoothly as I wanted it to. It felt like at times there were little moments missing from the movie, and there were moments where the film was sort of go in a direction which felt a little bit random, and it was just a little bit messy when it came to the editing and how the narrative flowed. And you have your generic jump scares. You know, it was just like, and it actually got to a point in this movie where it got quite boring when it came to the scares, because they kept doing the same thing. So you'd have, say, Sister Irene in front of the camera, and then behind, all of a sudden, the nun would appear, or something would appear. And this, you know, the nun, for example, would follow Sister Irene, and then she'd turn around and maybe would disappear or jump at her. And you'd get that quite a bit. And, or, you know, the camera would turn, and then all of a sudden there's the nun, and it was just sort of really sort of like, you know, I've seen it all before, you know, come on, give us something new. It was just really sort of boring, because when they did it for the first time, maybe the second time, it was like, yeah, okay, a little bit creepy, especially that corridor scene. That corridor scene was amazing, but then, like, it just got a bit boring. They kept doing the same sort of scares, the same sort of jump scares, and yeah, I actually got quite bored in this movie. Because like I said, there were some good moments when it comes to atmosphere and all of that, but there were too few of those moments. And for me, going back to the narrative, it just felt like they were struggling to go somewhere with this plot. I could imagine the writers sitting down and they thought, right, we got this nun. What can we do with it? And it felt like while watching this film, they were making it up as they were. Well, obviously they were making it up, but it's just like they didn't really know where to go with this story, because it's quite a basic story at the end. By the end of the film, it's like, oh, that's it. And in a way, it almost felt like a Conjuring rip-off. It was very similar in a way of the Conjuring movies, not like identical, but sort of how it ended, and it just didn't feel different. Didn't feel new, it didn't feel fresh, it just felt like a generic sort of horror movie with sort of like scares that will actually, perhaps, yeah, you know, young teenage girls will jump and scream in the cinema, but that's about it. And I wish that they just done more with the actual nun, Valak. I really liked the look of her. I thought she was really creepy. I just wish they did, you know, this film could have been a lot better, really. I mean, even with a basic plot, this could have been a really good movie. I mean, you've got some really great movies out there when it comes to horror, and they've got really basic plots. But this, even with with its basic plot, everything else together just didn't quite work. The script was just terrible. The narrative, the story, it didn't really know where it wanted to go. It felt quite messy. And it just, when it comes to the horror overall, they just failed at delivering that horror. It just got boring. It was just a really boring film where you've just got the same generic sort of boring jump scares. And yeah, you know, like I said, there were moments that were eerie. They were creepy. And there was a good attempt at creating that eerie atmosphere. But there were just too few of those moments. I did like the set pieces in this film as well, man. Some nice looking set pieces. It felt real, and going back to the lighting. I kind of like the lighting too. It felt like the look and feel of this movie reminded me of a Hammer movie. And I liked that. I really liked that. But it's just a shame, really, that it failed. This movie failed on so many other levels. I feel like this could have been a decent horror movie, like The Conjuring and Conjuring 2. But yeah, it just ended up feeling like an unnecessary spin-off, really. So yeah, that is my review for The Nun, and I will be giving The Nun a D+. So yeah, they are my thoughts of The Nun. What did you guys think? Please let me know below and let's get discussion going. Perhaps you hated it, perhaps you loved it. Did you agree with anything I said or disagreed? Please let me know below. My next review is for The Predator, and actually I've just seen it. I came back from the cinema about 30 minutes ago. So I'm a bit late filming this review actually, so I went to see The Predator first. Then I filmed this, and now I'm about to film the Predator review. Well, actually not about to. I'm going to edit this first, get this uploaded, then do the Predator review, a film, one of my anticipated movies of the year. I was really looking forward to it. I was really excited for it, even though you had all that stuff that went on behind the scenes with reshoots and all of that. I seen it, but was it a letdown, or did I love it? You'll just have to wait for my review, won't you, and find out. So yeah, thanks guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. And remember, if you're like me and you share the same passions as me, then why not hit subscribe?